She wants to ban plastic straws. I love my plastic straw. I hate those paper straws. Anyway.
Folks, Maga is in full meltdown mode ever since Joe Biden dropped out of the race, and now they realize they're going to have to go up against Vice President Kamala Harris. They're absolutely shaking in their boots, and it's one of the funniest things that I've ever seen. It feels so good to finally be able to take a sigh of relief and stop being on the defensive, and now we can just sit back and watch their house of cards crumble around them. This is a good time. This is good. This is what our base needed. This is the energy we needed. Watching them come unglued and watching them realize, you know what, we're stuck with the same old act. Now we got J.D. Vance on the ticket. That's not going to help matters. So it's funny to watch, folks. I'm really enjoying watching Maga's meltdown. This next clip from Mike Johnson, though, might be one of my favorites, because listen to this and tell me that he doesn't sound like some kid who's been acting up all day and mom just told him daddy's home. Take a look.
Look, if it violates the rules in some of these states, I expect that there will be litigation over that. So we'll see how it develops. We're doing our job here in Washington. The states will be handling that. But I do think it's problematic. I think millions of the American people believe that this is problematic. This is not the way the system is supposed to work. There's a reason it's unprecedented. You don't just, steamroll the rules and the process because you decide that your candidate is no longer suitable. That's what's happened here. I think everybody can see it for themselves, and we'll see how the campaign unfurls.
You can literally hear the panic in his voice, and I'm absolutely loving it, folks. I'm enjoying watching this because you can hear the distress in his voice. He realizes, oh crap, we're stuck with Trump and his same old boring act. His same divisive act, and now we're seeing the other side start to unify. We're starting to see the other side start to get energized, and they're headed straight for us. What in the hell do we do? But it's funny to me that he stands there and says, this is not how the system works. This is not how things are supposed to be. You know what's funny? I remember saying the same thing, but I remember saying it on January 6th. I remember saying, you know what, just because you bought into every conspiracy theory in the world doesn't mean you can go to Washington, take a vacation day, jump in your Dodge Dually, drive up to Washington, overthrow the government, and come back to work on the next day. That's what I was sitting saying. I was saying, you know what, this is not how the system works. You don't get to get in the way of the peaceful transfer of power. So for him to be talking about election integrity, that's like Charles Manson talking about family values, okay? He has not a leg to stand on with this. There's no argument that he has that holds up, because as long as they stand there and call the J6 terrorists patriots and hostages, folks, they do not have a leg to stand on. But we've heard so much talk about how now's the time for both sides to examine themselves, take a look at themselves, take a look at the language they're using and the rhetoric they're using, and we all need to bring the temperature down. But now that Kamala is the new nominee, we're seeing them turn the temperature up because they're panicking and coming right out loud and saying that it'll be a civil war. Yeah, they said it. Take a look.
Fight! Fight! We got time. Come on. Hey, we are in the fight for the soul of our nation. We are in a fight for our kids and our grandkids, a fight that we can never imagine. I believe wholeheartedly Donald Trump and Butler County's J.D. Vance are the last chance to save our country politically. I'm afraid if we lose this one, it's going to take a civil war to save the country, and it will be saved. It's the greatest experiment in the history of mankind. And if we come down to a civil war, I'm glad we got people like Schmitty and the Bikers for Trump on our side.
So we watched the mainstream media crucify Joe Biden over a debate performance. They stuck there for weeks, 24/7, talking about Joe Biden's debate performance. Why don't they bring Donald Trump on? Why don't they sit him down in a chair, and why don't they ask him the question, why did you let that man say that into a live microphone, and do you condone that type of behavior? Will you not call that type of behavior down? Don't you think that if you're going to continue to turn up the temperature as hot as you are, don't you think it's time that you consider stepping down here for the sake of democracy? Don't you think it's time that you step down here to tone the temperature down? But they won't. They'll let stuff like that go right over people's head, and it's people like us that is sitting here calling it out, and they're saying that we're the ones being divisive. But folks, in this next clip, I love this next clip because you can always count on Eric Swalwell to bring receipts. And if you're going to talk about bringing the temperature down in the room, Eric brings the receipts, and this is so wonderful. Take a look.
I'm not going to allow some, and I say some, the chairman of this committee is a serious legislator who wants answers. Some are not. And some are trying to rewrite what has happened in our country over the last 8 years erase what happened in this building on January 6th. One member of this body in Congress said the Republican district attorney in Butler County should immediately file charges against Joseph Biden for inciting assassination. Another said Congressman Scalise, Justice Kavanaugh, and now President Trump, for years, Democrats and their allies have recklessly stoked fears, calling President Trump and others threats to democracies. Another said Democrats and liberals in the media have called Trump a fascist. They've compared him to Hitler. They've tried to lock him up. A radical shift in what has really happened in our country. In fact, the former president's current vice presidential nominee is the one who said that Donald Trump might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroin he's responsible for, nauseous and reprehensible. I joined the chairman in seeking unity as the antidote to political violence. Unity as the antidote to political violence. But we're not going to erase and rewrite and allow some to reincarnate themselves as victims of what happened.
So how many of you have ever saw the movie Cadillac Records? It's one of my favorite movies. It's the story of Chess Records, Leonard Chess, and it's the story of Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Little Walter, Chuck Berry. Etta James is played by Beyonce. It's a great movie. Go out of your way to find it if you haven't watched it. But there's a scene in that movie where that Little Walter comes upon this dude that's pretending to be Little Walter. And he gets out and the guy's going around stealing his gigs by telling him, hey, I'm Little Walter. And you could do that back in those days because you didn't have social media. So you could just show up at a random club and say, I'm Little Walter. And if you could halfway sing like him and play a harmonica, then you could steal his gig. But we're not in that era anymore. We're in an era now where that if you say something into a live microphone or you make a tweet or you make a post about something, it's there, folks, and people can pull it up and bring receipts. So I don't understand why in the world that MAGA is shocked that we're bringing the receipts and showing them what it is they said. We can catch them in every lie they tell because they can't keep up with it. You know why they can't keep up with it? Because they're just saying what their base needs to hear at that particular moment. They do not care about the American people at all. All they care about is grifting and getting ahead. So they will say whatever's popular in that moment to move the needle forward for them and their pocketbook. That's it. That's all they care about doing. And that's why they don't remember what they said. That's why they're sitting there like deers in headlights going, oh, did I really say that about him? Yeah, you did when it was popular to do so. Yeah, you did when you thought it would push you ahead in this world. And we can always bring the receipts. You're not going to be able to go around posing, you know, and get away with it like you could years ago. Folks, watching MAGA meltdown is glorious to watch. Watching, you know, do you guys realize how tired, especially me, do you realize how tired I've been of hearing Let's Go Brandon? Do you know how many times I've been asked the question, what do you think of that? And I've always had the same response. Anytime someone's ever said to me, what do you think about Let's Go Brandon? I'm like, I think it's one of the most childish things ever. These people have no problem saying the most racist, over-the-top things in the world. These people have no problem saying the most homophobic and transphobic things. These people have no problem saying the most anti-Semitic things. These people have no problem being cruel and hateful as hell. So why do they have to come up with a childish catchphrase to say fuck Joe Biden when they say fuck women's rights every day of their life? Like, why do they suddenly have to have a code for that word when they stand back and laugh and cheer every time Trump says it? It just shows you the type of people that they truly are. But we're energized now, and we're moving forward, and we're going to beat Donald Trump come November. And, yeah, they may kick, they may scream, they may, you know, go out here and try to, you know, take to the streets again. And if they do, it'll get shut down just like it did on January 6th. And we will remind them, hey, you guys did it once, you failed. You did it again, you failed. Go back to square one, come up with a new act when you think you can, you know, beat us. That's what we're going to have to do. We're just going to have to put the ball in their court and be like, hey, when you guys come up with some serious ideas, we'll talk with you. Until then, we're going to keep calling you out and we're going to keep bringing the receipts.